Hi everybody, and welcome back to video number 2 in chapter 7. And when we left off, we were looking at reconciling the difference between absorption and variable income. I think you're probably starting to get this after these last few examples. First, we have our variable costing at $260,000. That's variable costing. But in this case, we sold more than we produced. So we've used up the 5,000 units that were in beginning inventory, and they had $6 of per unit fixed costs attached to each of those units. So if we multiply that through, that explains the difference between the 260,000 and the lesser $230,000 of absorption costing net operating income. Okay. Now, if we happen to produce exactly the same over the total 2 periods, which we have in this case, then the totals are going to be the same at $350,000 each. We produced $5,000 more than we sold in the first period, and we produced 5,000 units less than we sold in the second period. Okay, so key insights here. The relation between production and sales. There's an effect on inventory. There is a relation between the variable and absorption incomes. So the units produced equals the units sold. We have no change in inventory, and absorption costing equals variable costing. If the units produced are greater than what we sell, inventory increases, but absorption costing is more than variable costing. If we produce less than the units we sell, the opposite occurs. Inventory decreases, and absorption costing is less than variable costing. Okay, key points here. So enabling the CVP analysis, variable costing categorizes costs as variable and fixed. So it's much easier to use this income statement format for CVP analysis. Because absorption costing assigns fixed manufacturing overhead costs to units produced, in the last example, that was $6 for the Harvey Company. A portion of the fixed manufacturing overhead resides in inventory when units remain unsold. The potential result is positive operating income when the number of units sold is less than the break-even point. Okay. Variable costing income is only affected by changes in unit sales. It's not affected by the number of units produced. So as a general rule, when sales goes up, net operating income goes up, and vice versa. Absorption costing, as I think you know by now, is influenced by changes in unit sales and units of production. So net operating income can be increased simply by producing more units, even if those units are not sold. So variable costing correctly identifies the additional variable costs incurred to make one more unit. In this case, $10 per unit for the Harvey Company. It also emphasizes the impact of total fixed costs on profits. So because absorption costing assigns fixed manufacturing overhead costs to units produced, that's the $6 per unit for Harvey Company, it gives the impression that fixed manufacturing overhead is variable with respect to the units produced. It is not. The result can be inappropriate pricing decisions and product discontinuing decisions. Very important concept. So be sure you understand that $6 per unit that we've calculated for the Harvey Company is not a variable cost. We sort of pretend that it is sometimes, and frankly, some of our people get confused when they look at that, but it is not a variable cost. Okay, so we can prepare a segmented income statement that differentiates traceable fixed costs from common fixed costs and use it to make decisions. Okay, a segment is a part or activity of an organization about which a manager seeks cost, revenue, or profit data. So that can be an individual store, that can be a sales territory, that can be a service center. Segment reporting. So there are two keys in building segmented income statements. Here, a contribution format should be used because it separates the fixed from the variable costs and it enables the calculation of a contribution margin. Traceable fixed costs should be separated from common fixed costs to enable the calculation of a segment margin. So, what does that all mean? Here, our traceable fixed costs arise because of the existence of a particular segment and would disappear over time if that segment itself disappeared. Okay, what would be an example? The salaries of a Fritos product manager at Pepsi Company is traceable fixed cost of the Fritos business segment of PepsiCo. Now, the maintenance cost for the building in which a Boeing 777 is assembled is traceable fixed cost of this 777 business segment of Boeing. Okay. Now, common fixed costs arise because of the overall operation of the company and would not disappear if any particular segment were eliminated. Examples of that would be the salary of the CEO of General Motors, a common fixed cost of various divisions of General Motors. It's not going to go away if I make one of the divisions go away. So that's the key example in common fixed costs. So the cost of heating a Safeway or Kroger grocery store is a common fixed cost of the various departments because we're not going to change heating, for that matter cooling, of a Safeway or Kroger grocery store, because it wouldn't matter if I have one product on the shelves or 5 jillion on the shelves. It's going to be a common fixed cost. All right, it's important to realize that the traceable fixed costs of one segment may be a common fixed cost of another segment. For example, the landing fee paid to land an airplane at an airport is traceable to the particular flight, but it's not traceable to first class, business class, or economy class passengers. Okay, traceable fixed costs. Now, the segment margin is computed by subtracting the traceable fixed costs of a segment from its contribution margin, and it's the best gauge of the long run profitability of that segment. So, our traceable and common fixed costs. Here is the traceable fixed costs, and we don't allocate the common fixed costs to the segments. Nice diagram here. All right. Weber Incorporated has two divisions. One, the computer division here, and two, the television division. Let's look more closely at the television division income statement. And here's our contribution margin format, where we have our sales, our variable cost of goods sold, our other variable expenses, and our total variable expenses. Our contribution margin's $150,000. We have traceable fixed expenses of $90,000, and that gives us a division margin of $60,000. So, as you would know, the cost of goods sold consists of variable manufacturing costs, and the fixed and variable costs are listed in separate sections under a contribution margin format. All right, now if I look at this from a different perspective, here, contribution margin is computed by taking our sales minus our variable costs, here, and the segment margin is the television's contribution to profits. Okay, so now if I look at the company and I divide that into the two divisions, television and computer, we calculated the television one here in the last couple of slides, and we also have the same thing for our computer division. So we add those beauties across, and here is the company's totals. Now, what we do next is we look for these common expenses. Common fixed expenses should not be allocated to the divisions. These expenses would remain even if one of the divisions were eliminated. Okay, and so from a company standpoint, our net operating income is $75,000. But as we look at divisions, we would look at the $100,000 of division margins here. Both are positive. So we're not going to eliminate either one of those because of profits. Okay, as previously mentioned, fixed expenses that are traceable to one segment can become common fixed expenses if the company is divided into smaller segments. So let's see how that works using the Weber example. Here, the television division has two product lines, regular and big screen. All right, so here we divided that $300,000 of sales into the big screen and regular, right? And the variable expenses, contribution margins, traceable fixed costs, and product line margin here. Now, those come from the income statements of those two divisions within a division. All right, so now the television division is going to have the $300,000 of sales, that's clear. The variable expenses, that's clear. Contribution margin, that's clear. But here, the traceable fixed costs are $80,000. And those fixed costs can be directly traced to the television or to the television division plus another $10,000. Okay. So here then is our product line margin. Made up of our regular and big screen margins. But we have some common expenses here of $10,000 in the television division. And that takes us back to our divisional margin of $60,000. Okay, so that $10,000 difference Let's go back maybe and clarify that.